Hello and welcome to another episode of Fundy Tidings. I'm your host Jay Remer, and with me today I have two guests, Alison Smith and Lorraine Gilmore Peters. They are two ladies from St. John and they are coaches. Alison is a parenting coach and Lorraine is a mindset and wellness coach. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jay. Happy to be here.
This is so exciting.
Thank you.
So this is a topic that I love, and it's going to be very difficult for me to keep my mouth shut, but I'm going to do my very best to find out what your perspectives are on this. But this is basically figuring out how, as a parent, you can sort of organize your life in a way that is handleable. And the term that you have introduced me to, which I think is a fabulous one, is that of the umbrella. So why don't you tell us about that, and we'll see how we open this umbrella.
Sure thing. So we recently had a conversation, and we were talking about moms especially, and how they have so much on their plates. They feel like they need to take care of other people's needs, which they do, but sometimes they're the last to be taken care of, and sometimes they feel really pulled in a lot of different directions. So I loved what you had to say about this idea of a life umbrella and how we can use this concept to clear some things off our plate, get clear on what it is that's important to us as individuals and moms.
Yeah, great segue, Alison. So, with working with predominantly women over the last 25 years, I've always held a very lofty notion that anybody, men or women, can have anything they want in their life. They can really achieve anything they want to. The biggest piece of that is getting clarity. It's being clear on what you want. And so I have this concept of, a life umbrella. And so under my umbrella, for me personally, are only about three really big things. And it is to be an exceptional parent and to someday be that grandparent, the confidant, the one everybody comes to for advice, the one everybody wants to be around. That's the biggest thing under my life umbrella. The next thing is my physical well-being. I love to exercise. I want to live to be 100 and be a healthy 100-year-old. And then what I would call my spiritual well-being, just that sense of I'm connected to people, I'm connected to my community, I feel a connection to something bigger than me that makes me feel fulfilled. So under my life umbrella, those are the three guiding principles. And so as a busy mom, as a grandmother, as a business owner, as a wife, like everybody else, I could be, and sometimes I am, pulled in a million different directions if you were to succumb to every request that people have of you. So where the life umbrella comes into play is that when anything comes my way, a request, something that I'm asked to do or participate in or give my time, energy, and focus to, I only have to say, does it feed into one of those three paramount raindrops underneath my umbrella? Does it reinforce my spiritual well-being? Does it reinforce my physical health or taking care of myself? Does it make me a better mother, grandmother, spouse, that kind of family-oriented thing? And so if it doesn't feed into those things under my life umbrella, the answer is simple. I clear it off my deck. I don't accept it. Or if it's no longer serving one of those three purposes, I clear it off my plate and I start to say no.
Lorraine, this makes perfect sense to me, but I'm going to guess that there may be some viewers who would like to know how to get to that point, because I think there are a lot of people who are unaware of what is under their umbrella. They don't take the time to even think about it. So what I'm wondering is how can people what is the first step for people to take to be able to do that? Because it's a great idea, but if they're over here and the umbrella's over here, how do we get them together?
Right.
Is that a fair question?
That's a very fair question. I think about my husband's a real estate investor, and he follows this real estate guy from 30 or 40 years ago. And one of the pieces of advice that this real estate expert always says is, when something happens, the first thing you should do is nothing. do nothing. And so that's what I would say is the very first step. When you realize maybe you're unfulfilled, you're discontent, your life really isn't the way you want it, you're not feeling the way you want to feel, the first thing is do nothing. Just start to be aware of what makes you happy, what makes you unhappy, what makes you angry, mad, sad, discontent, right? Just let it come in and let it go out. Just become aware. And just that conscious awareness, pretty soon a picture will start to form and people will be able to go, ah, okay, you know what? Traveling the world is really important to me. I haven't done it. I haven't set myself up so I can do it. That's really important to me. I'm going to put that under my life umbrella and that's going to become a focus. Mm-hmm. Then they may say, you know what? Giving back to my community is really important. I used to help out maybe at the food bank when I was a kid with my parents, and I haven't done that in 25 years. That's really important to me. I'm gonna put that under my life umbrella. And so just letting things ruminate in your mind for a while, and then you will see things rise to the top. Like I say, it'll be very few things. It may be 3 or 4 big things that are important, things that speak to your morals, your ethics, just your sense of who you are. Some people may say that's their spirit or the essence of who they are. And so there won't be many things. It could be really, you know, being the greatest mom out there. That could be under somebody's life umbrella. It could be philanthropy, you know, and so it's going to be different for everybody. But it'll be surprising as to how few things are under that life umbrella.
It seems to me, coming from my perspective on the whole thing, as you know, a sort of a civility guy, that what you're enabling women to do, or providing the opportunity for not just women but anybody really to do who is in the role of a parent, because that's what we're talking about here, is to take back their power. So in other words, instead of reacting to everything in life, it's actually to being proactive. Mm-hmm. And making that shift from being, woe is me, I have no control over my life, my children, my husband, my job, my health, all that controls me. Making that shift to, I'm going to take control here, that's where the golden key is. Is that something that you could talk about, or am I missing, is that?
No, that's a very astute observation, because I believe that the only thing any of us have ultimate control over is our mindset, is how we choose to see things. You can have 2 people with the exact same situation or life event, and you will see that one goes down a road of, you know what, I'm going to choose to see the bright side of this, the silver lining, the cup is half full, there are actually some good things that are coming out of this terrible life situation, and they go forward in that manner. And then you have the person that sinks into that traumatic life experience. It becomes their story. It becomes what they talk about, think about, reminisce, observe in other people, tell the story to. It becomes who they are, and they go down that road. And so at the very awareness that your life or just things day to day are not going the way that you want, you're not happy, you are in absolute control right then to be able to say, I have decided, which by the way is a very powerful statement. Sometimes when you hear people say, I've decided, you better back up, because they mean business. It's a very powerful statement. I've decided that, and now comes the critical part, this is what I want. So that's why the life umbrella is such a simple concept, is that it gives you the much needed clarity. You really can't move forward in a very decided way until you know where you're going. That would be like jumping in your car and saying, okay, you know, we're going to the Yukon. Do you know how to get there? No. Do you have GPS? No. Well, how are we going to get there? Well, I don't know.
Let's just start driving.
Right. So you would get there much quicker, and you would have a lot more confidence, a lot less doubt about your success if you actually were very clear on what you were doing and how you were going to do it. And the life umbrella is the beginning of that clarity.
So you've talked a little bit about emotions and the role that has in understanding this and getting some more clarity. This idea of determining what's underneath that umbrella, I think if we focus on what fills us with joy, what gets us passionate, what really excites us and gives us energy, that can be a real clue to what might be under that umbrella. And then the flip side of that, those heavy, negative feeling emotions can be a really good guide too. You mentioned feeling unfulfilled. Are there other indicators that moms could look for that would give them some insight into what they want or what they don't want?
Yeah. A lot of people struggle with that because they've given so much of themselves. You know, I see this in women who were mothers really young, and I'm sort of in that bucket. I've been mothering since I was 20 years old, and it's very easy to just lose yourself because, you know, you become a mother and maybe a wife, and you're running a house and you're raising kids. You can get so caught up in the day-to-day, and it is busy and it is all-encompassing for a lot of years, that you emerge from it 20 or 25 years later and you really honestly don't know who you are, what really brings you joy anymore, and you get into the habit of being unhappy. And so one of the simple things that women can do, Alison, is go back to when you were a kid. What did you love to do when you were a kid? What were the kinds of things? Not so much, it doesn't even have to be exactly the kinds of things that you used to do, but what sort of things were you around or engaged in that you remember made you happy? When I do that exercise, for me, it becomes no surprise that I'm doing the kind of work that I'm doing, because I loved, when I saw my mother have a couple of girlfriends around the table and the teacups come out and I knew there was going to be some conversation, that's where I wanted to be. I just wanted to listen. I just wanted to hear what these women were talking about. And that really made me happy and fulfilled and was fun to me. So as an adult, it becomes no shock that I love being around women, being engaged in hearing about women's lives and coaching them to give them a little more clarity. So a good place for women to start, if they're kind of lost, if they're not feeling content and fulfilled and they forgot what joy feels like, take yourself back to when you were 8, 9, 10 years old. What did you like doing?
Lorraine, I noticed you just lit up when you were talking about the teacups and everything, and your body language just shifted and your face got really bright. And I think that gave me the idea that women could ask a close friend, what do you see? What do you notice? When do you see me just on fire and lit up and excited? And our friends can be wonderful sounding boards for us. They can hold up a mirror and let us see what we're having a hard time seeing. So I think the mums can really reach out to those who are close to them for some insights as well.
Yeah, and you know, that's a fantastic point, Alison. And these days I think there's a lot of pressure too for women that if they step out and do something, oh, well, how much money are you making? Right, and I think it's important to point out that things that bring us joy aren't necessarily things that are going to make us millionaires or put us on the global map or make us a superstar, right? Some things are things that we do that just make us feel good. Mm-hmm. But by extension, when mothers and when women feel good about who they are and what they're doing, I will tell you that impacts a lot of people. That impacts a lot of people when women take care of themselves and do things that that pay off for them in a well-being kind of way. There are a lot of people in their homes and their communities that they touch in a positive way. So not everything is about, you know, ending up on Entertainment Tonight or Forbes 500, or, you know, it is about how it makes you feel.
How can moms take that idea and extend that? Moms often feel guilty when they take time for themselves, when they spend a little money on themselves, when there are so many other calls for their time. How can they take what you've just mentioned and use that to help assuage the guilt a little bit?
Yeah. I think that feeling guilty about taking time for yourself, I think that's a learned trait. I think as girls, I think we learn that. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's an inherent characteristic for I'm a mother, therefore I feel guilty. Because I didn't learn that from my mother. My mother had no problem. She was a great mother and she was home a great deal of the time, but she had no problem saying, hey, see you later, going out to whatever, karate class, or didn't matter. Nobody asked where she was going, and nobody expected her to not go. So I think, I know that we teach people how to treat us, mm-hmm. and when you decide that you're going to take care of yourself, then people won't question that if that's the way you've decided that that's going to be for your, for your health. And so with that in mind, if you learned that trait of feeling guilty because you're going off to do something on your own, just reframing that. And what I mean by reframing is just looking at it from a different perspective. So if you know you have the house is in order, what makes you feel good about your kids is in order, what makes you feel good about your obligations to your husband or your partner is in order, then frame that up in a way that you can leave and everything that you feel was your obligation is done. And by spending time on yourself, by making you feel good, you come home and you contribute so much more to your family. Logging hours with your kids does not mean that they're happier kids. Doing what gives you quality time and time that they're going to remember, in my opinion, is what makes for a happier family.
Lorraine, I've been listening to what you've said, and it makes perfect sense. I'm guessing that there are a lot of people out there who, well, I think in general we tend to go to, when we're feeling any stress in our lives, we go to our comfort zone. Now, our comfort zone is not necessarily a healthy place.
That's right.
Because if we were brought up in a carrot and stick world, which many of us were, actually the stick is a very comfortable place to be. And so guilting yourself is actually more comfortable than this freedom that you might have if you decide that you can make a conscious choice of doing something else. That may be very uncomfortable for some people. And until they actually experience it and realize that, hey, actually, this is a good flavor too, a better flavor, they won't choose it. And so how do you get, because I think this is the trick, or this is the key, is how do you get people to shift from that feeling of, from the comfort zone guilt to being, taking more power and making a conscious choice and feeling good about it.
Right, and that's the key. The answer is in the very last words that you said, which is feeling good about it. So in our universe, everything is a dance between you, the people that you interact with, the energy that is in the spaces in between. So everything is about how you feel about the words that you say and the actions that you're going to take.
Right.
So if when you feel guilty, guilt is a huge negative vibration. You say the word guilt, it doesn't make you feel uplifted and positive. It makes you feel bad. So the trick is, again, to say, okay, what do I want? Well, I want to be able to spend some more time on myself, with my friends, and feel good about it. Okay, so what are some ways, and this is where Alison's point of maybe brainstorming with another friend, what are some ways that you can achieve that and feel good about it? And it's amazing what just 5 or 10 minutes of saying, okay, so what if I ask, not permission, but what if I were to poll my family and say, you have everything you need, supper's on the table, laundry's clean, TV is on, how do you feel about me going out for an hour? Oh, we're good, Mom, go ahead. Okay, now I feel good about it. So you have to shift feelings of guilt, which are negative, to finding a way to see it in a positive way, which makes you feel good.
So this is where you as a professional would come in handy, because making that shift is not easy.
No.
And I think the thing is that when you look at issues surrounding, say, domestic violence as an example, and there's a big spectrum. There's the happy people over here, and there are the not so happy people over here. And we all fall in that spectrum somewhere. Getting out of, we can say, oh, I'd like to go and do this and I'd like to do that. And is it okay with you? And if they say yes, then everything's fine. That's not the way it works all the time.
Nope.
Sometimes it is, we say one thing and we actually do another because the action is more comfortable. Even though it's negative, it's more comfortable. So I'm going back to, how do we make that shift from a stressful life to a fulfilled life. And I'm not even so concerned about the guilt end of it as just simply, this is what I'm used to, therefore I'm comfortable being miserable, as opposed to taking the big chance to be successful. This is a very common problem that a lot of people have in business and social life and everything. So is the question clear?
Yeah, so and this is why, it's not really well socialized, the kind of work that Alison and I do. I want to start there for a moment. A lot of people are used to hearing about executive coaches. Like in the workplace, it would be common for somebody to be paired up with an executive coach, somebody who's knowledgeable in that area of business, and they're going to mentor and coach you. People are used to that. People are used to personal trainers, fitness coaches, right? When Alison and I step out to explain what we do, people kind of go, huh? Because people have not yet been able to fast forward and see the value in someone like her and I working with them to identify perhaps what some of their barriers are to getting what they want. Could be happiness in the home, it could be a shift in career, it could be parenting better, right? It's hard because it's an abstract concept of mindset coaching. Someone's going to help teach me how to think differently? Yeah, because some things seem simple.
It all falls back to that.
It all comes back to how you choose to see something. And the first step is, like I said, I call it contrast. It's okay to talk about what you don't like, because if we have any mileage on us at all, we know what we don't like in a lot of areas of our life. Relationships, careers.
And we've often spent a lot of time there focused on that.
Exactly. And so it's okay to have contrast. It's okay to be able to say, I know everything I don't want in a partner. I've gone through, numerous relationships. They've all been the same. I know everything I don't want. Okay, great. That's okay. The trick is to observe it as briefly as possible. For some people, a bad relationship, observing it would be a year. For some people, it might be 25. Then you have to get clear. So you have to say, here's the switch. What do I want? So this is what I don't want, so what do I want? Now I'm going to focus on what I want. So in a relationship, I want somebody who is neat and tidy, doesn't live with their mother, has their own job, right? What do I want? And then I have to find ways to continuously give that desire my full energy, attention, and focus. So that it could be relationships, career, raising children, right? I'm going to give it my attention, energy, and focus. I'm going to put things up around me that resemble what it is I'm trying to achieve. I'm going to, attract the proper resources, surround myself with the right people, right? So I'm going to put myself in the environment that's going to help me attract that which I'm trying to achieve. And then you have to practice finding reasons to believe that it could happen.
Right.
Doubt is one of the biggest killers of people's desires, is their disbelief that it can happen. You mentioned domestic violence. That's an excellent case of that, where somebody may have come out of an abusive home growing up. They know nothing else. So they attract, because of their mindset, their attitude, their vibe, they begin to attract the same kind of people into their life. And so the story continues. So
and they believe they don't deserve anything else.
Yes.
Well, one of the things, not to jump right in, but we're kind of getting toward the end of this broadcast, so I just want to make a point and make sure that we are that we've got the takeaway. I think that the work that you are both doing is critically important. It is cutting edge, and in that it's new, and I think that it is it's sort of the way psychologists were viewed, when I was a kid. You didn't go to a psychologist unless you were crazy. And I think the thing is that today we're beginning to realize that there are certain things in life that you cannot do yourself. And this is one of them, which is why your point of talking to friends is so important. And I would say talking to people like you is incredibly important. And I think that that's where there gets to be a little bit of a rub. It's, I don't deserve to have somebody like you in my life to help me through this. I have to tough it through because that's what I know. I think it's really important for people who are not, you know, the thing that I always go back to is the beginner's mind, you know, because we're all wrapped up in helping people. That's what we do. And we forget what it's like to feel helpless. And so I think as a takeaway, what would you like to be the sort of the 25 words or less point?
Going back to, I've done a lot of weight loss coaching over 25 years. That was really my start. That's my expertise going back 25 years. And almost every woman I ever worked with said, I should be able to do this on my own. I should be able to do this on my own by now. And so that notion that reaching out to a qualified, capable coach with tons of tools and techniques to help you, that is helping yourself.
Right.
You know, if you were planning a huge wedding, would you consider it failure to go to a wedding planner that has the expertise, the tools, the connections? No, you wouldn't.
Right.
And so that would be my closing statement.
Very good.
Reaching out to a professional to help get your life the way you want it is helping yourself.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more, and thank you very much. And thank you for coming down and talking to us.
Happy to be here.
And I look forward to having you back again on another show. And thank you all for listening today to Monday Tidings, and I look forward to having you back on another show too, sometime soon.